Most people think making concrete stepping stones is one thing. You mix the concrete. You pour it into a mold. You get a gray circle. You put in the ground. Done. And that is fine. That works. But it is also the reason most DIY stepping stone paths look exactly the same, functional, flat, and forgettable. The kind of path that blends into the garden rather than becoming part of it. Here is what changes everything. Concrete is not a finished material. It is a canvas. And in the 30-minute window between pouring and setting, it will accept almost anything you press into it, embed into it, or drag across its surface, and hold that mark permanently for decades through frost and rain and everything a garden throws at it. Today on Daily Garden Fix, 8 simple ways to make concrete stepping stones. 8 different looks, 8 different techniques, 1 bag of mix, and a backyard path that looks like no one else's on the street. Let's pool. Welcome back to Daily Garden Fix, the channel where ordinary materials become extraordinary outdoor spaces. Hit that like button right now, because today's video covers 8 complete techniques, from the simplest pour-in-place method for total beginners, all the way to a finish so striking that people will ask where you bought them. Every single method uses the same basic concrete mix. The difference is entirely in what you do with it in that 30-minute window before it sets. Stay to the end, because method number 7 uses a material most people have sitting in a drawer right now and had no idea could do this. Here we go. Before we get into the 8 methods, 30 seconds on the foundation that every single one of them shares, because get this right and every method works. Get it wrong and none of them will. 1 bag of ready-mixed concrete or sand and cement mixed from any hardware store. Mix it with clean water to the consistency of thick peanut butter, stiff enough to hold its shape when squeezed in a gloved hand, not wet enough to pour or slump. This stiffness is everything. Too much water is the single most common reason DIY stepping stones crack, crumble, and fail within a season. Stiff mix. Always. Coat the inside of your mold with cooking spray or a thin wipe of vegetable oil before pouring. This is your release agent. Without it, the stone bonds to the mold and breaks on removal. Fill your mold to 2.5 inches deep. Tap the sides firmly to settle air bubbles. And then, depending on the method, you either work the surface immediately or leave it to firm for 30 to 60 minutes before your finishing technique. Cure every finished stone in shade, covered with plastic, for a minimum of 48 hours before demolding. Cure the demolded stone a further 5 days before placing in the path. That curing time is what separates a stone that lasts 20 years from one that does not survive its first winter. Now, the 8 methods. Method 1, the clean classic. Method number 1, the foundation method, the one every other technique on this list builds from, and the one that, done well, looks cleaner and more considered than most people expect a plain concrete stone to look. Pour your mix into a circular plastic plant saucer. 12 to 16 inches in diameter is the ideal size for a comfortable stepping stone. Fill to 2.5 inches. Tap the sides, then spend 60 seconds on the surface. Smooth the top face with a margin float or the back of a large spoon dipped in water. Work in slow circular motions from the outside edge toward the center, keeping the tool flat and the pressure even. The water on the tool face brings the fine cement particles to the surface and creates a skin that, when fully cured, is dense, smooth, and noticeably more refined than an untouched pour. While the surface is still workable, use the tip of a trowel to cut a shallow chamfer around the top edge of the stone. A 45-degree bevel approximately 1/2 inch wide. This single detail transforms a raw poured edge into a finished, intentional-looking perimeter that reads as designed rather than cast. For 2026, a plain smooth stone in warm gray or tinted with a small amount of ochre pigment powder sits beautifully in both contemporary and cottage garden settings. Simple, timeless, and completely yours. Budget, under $2 per stone. The benchmark that every other method improves upon. Method 2, pressed leaf impression. Method number 2, the technique that uses your garden to decorate itself and produces results so detailed and so beautiful that people consistently refuse to believe they are handmade. Pour and smooth your stone as in method 1. Then, within the first 20 minutes while the surface is still fully workable, press a large bold-veined leaf firmly onto the smooth face. The best leaves for this technique are the ones with the most pronounced venation. Hosta leaves for sweeping parallel veins that print with extraordinary clarity. Rhubarb and fascia for large dramatic shapes that fill the entire stone face. Fern fronds for a delicate, intricate print that looks almost lace-like in the finished concrete. Oak and maple for a classic leaf silhouette that everyone recognizes and nobody expects to find cast in a garden path. Press the leaf with your flat palm, applying even pressure across the entire surface. Every vein, every edge, serration, every surface texture transfers into the concrete beneath. Leave the leaf in place as the stone cures. Do not remove it until demolding. When you peel it away after 48 hours, every detail of that leaf is permanently cast into the stone surface. Seal the finished stone with concrete sealer after full cure. The sealer deepens the contrast between the pale stone background and the darker impression, making every vein line sharper and more defined. A path of leaf-pressed stones, each using a different plant from the surrounding garden, creates a permanent botanical record of the space it runs through. The kind of detail that makes people crouch down and look closely every time they walk past. Budget, under $2 per stone. The most personal technique on this list. Method 3, Mosaic tile inlay. Method number 3, the technique that turns a stepping stone into a piece of garden art, using broken tiles that most people throw away. Broken ceramic tiles salvaged from a renovation, picked up from a tile shop as offcuts or sourced from a salvage yard for almost nothing, are the raw material for a mosaic stepping stone that looks handcrafted, colorful, and completely individual. Pour and smooth your stone. Then, within the first hour while the concrete is workable but beginning to firm, press individual tile pieces into the surface to approximately half their thickness. Work from the center outward in whatever pattern feels right. A simple sunburst of radiating pieces, a central motif surrounded by a ring of complementary color, or a completely intuitive arrangement that groups tones and textures without a predetermined plan. Press each tile firmly enough that its top surface sits flush with or very slightly proud of the concrete surrounding it. Spacing between pieces should be consistent, approximately the width of a standard grout joint. After full curing, mix a small amount of cement and water to a thin paste and brush it across the entire surface. Work it into the gaps between tiles with a stiff brush, then wipe the tile faces clean with a damp sponge before it sets. The result is a cleanly grouted mosaic surface that is weatherproof, non-slip, and genuinely beautiful. For 2026, deep blue and white combinations for a Mediterranean feel. Warm terracotta and cream for a Tuscan courtyard aesthetic. A single bold color against plain concrete for a clean, contemporary result. Budget, $2 to $4 per stone, depending on tile source. The most colorful method on this list. Method 4, exposed aggregate finish. Method number 4, the finish that looks like it came from a professional landscaping yard and costs less than a coffee to produce. After pouring and smoothing your stone, scatter a generous, even layer of decorative aggregate across the entire top surface. Decorative gravel, piece shingle, smooth river pebbles, tumbled glass, crushed slate, or any combination of small stones with visual interest all work beautifully. Press the aggregate in firmly using a flat board or your glove palm until every piece is partially embedded and the layer is uniformly set into the concrete face. Leave the stone for approximately 3 to 4 hours until the concrete has firmed enough to hold the aggregate securely but not yet hardened completely. Then take a stiff brush and gently sweep the surface in short strokes. This removes the thin cement film coating the tops of the embedded stones and reveals the natural color and texture of the aggregate beneath. Finish by misting the surface with clean water and brushing again. The aggregate faces emerge clean, textured, and visually rich, each stone in the mix catching light from a slightly different angle and producing a surface that changes appearance throughout the day as the light shifts. White quartz aggregate for a bright, contemporary look that works beautifully against dark timber decking. Mixed river pebbles for a warm, organic feel that suits cottage and wildlife garden settings. Dark slate chips for a moody, modern finish that makes surrounding planting colors pop. Non-slip, naturally textured, and unique to whatever aggregate combination you choose. Budget, $2 to $3 per stone. The most professional-looking finish on this entire list. For methods in and for to go. Coming up, method number 6 uses a technique borrowed from Japanese garden design that most Western gardeners have never tried at home, and the result is unlike anything else on this list. And method number 7 uses something sitting in a drawer in most homes right now that almost nobody thinks of as a garden tool. Both are coming up. Stay with me. Method 5, stamp pattern finish. Method number 5, the technique that adds repeating geometric or organic pattern to the stone surface, using everyday objects as stamps that most people already own. Concrete accepts texture from almost any object pressed firmly into its surface while workable. Purpose-made concrete stamps are available but entirely unnecessary. The objects already in your home produce results just as striking. A large natural sponge pressed and twisted slightly on the smooth concrete surface produces an irregular, cellular texture that mimics natural sandstone from a distance. A rubber doormat with a geometric relief pattern pressed face down onto the stone surface transfers its entire pattern into the concrete below. Flip the mat away after 30 seconds, and the pattern remains crisp and complete. A ball of crumpled aluminum foil pressed across the entire surface produces a cracked, irregular texture that resembles aged, weathered stone. For a deliberate geometric pattern, use a length of wooden dowel, a cylindrical bottle, or a square-edged ruler to press clean lines into the smooth surface in a repeating grid or herringbone arrangement. The press lines read as grout joints and give the appearance of a multi-piece mosaic stone cast as a single pour. Work within the first 20 to 30 minutes while the surface accepts impression readily. Practice your stamp on a piece of cardboard first to understand the pressure and motion needed before committing it to the stone face. Budget, under $2 per stone. Infinite pattern variations from objects already in the house. Method 6, Pebble River Stone Face. Method number 6, the Japanese garden technique I promised you, and the method that produces a stepping stone unlike anything available in any garden center at any price point. In traditional Japanese garden design, river stones are set in sand and gravel to suggest the movement of water, the curved lines of pebble placement echoing the flow of a stream. This same principle applied to a concrete stepping stone face produces a surface of extraordinary natural beauty. Collect smooth, flat river pebbles in a consistent size range, roughly the size of a large coin to the size of a small egg. You need enough to cover the entire face of your stone in a single, closely packed layer. Riverbeds, beach shores, or decorative pebble bag from a garden center all work as sources. Pour and smooth your stone. Then, beginning at the center of the stone face and working outward in gentle curves, as though placing stones in a flowing stream. Press each pebble firmly into the concrete surface one by one, half submerging each one. Pack them closely, edge to edge, so no concrete is visible between them. Work the curved lines consistently, all curves flowing in the same direction, like water moving around a rock. After full cure, the pebbles are permanently locked into the stone face. Each one half emerge from the concrete below, creating a richly textured surface of natural rounded forms that looks ancient, considered, and deeply beautiful. Seal with concrete sealer to deepen the whetstone color of each pebble. The finished stone looks as though the river ran through your garden and left something behind. Budget, $2 to $5 per stone, depending on pebble source. The most distinctive method on this entire list. Method 7, lace and fabric texture transfer. Method number 7, the one sitting in a drawer in most homes right now, and the one that surprises people most when they see what it does to a concrete surface. Lace fabric, the kind used for curtains, tablecloths, or dress fabric. Any lace or open weave textile with a repeating pattern pressed on a fresh concrete transfers its entire pattern structure into the surface with a precision and delicacy that looks completely unlike anything a tool or a stamp can produce. Cut a piece of lace fabric slightly larger than the face of your stone. Pour and smooth your stone as normal. Then lay the lace flat across the entire smooth surface and press it gently but firmly with a flat board, applying even pressure so every part of the lace contacts the concrete equally. Leave in place for 30 minutes while the concrete begins to firm around the fabric. Then peel the lace away slowly and evenly from one edge. What remains is a complete transfer of the lace pattern into the concrete surface. Every intersection, every loop, every open cell of the weave reproduced in permanent relief. Fine lace produces a delicate, intricate surface that catches raking light in the early morning and late afternoon and reveals the full pattern in shifting shadow and highlight. Heavier open weave fabric produces a bolder, more graphic result. The same piece of lace can be used dozens of times without degrading. Rinse it after each use and leave to dry. For 2026, a path of lace-textured stones in warm, ivory-tinted concrete running through a cottage garden planting is generating serious attention on gardening platforms. The combination of the soft, organic texture with the permanence of concrete is exactly the aesthetic tension that the best garden designs work with. Budget: under $2 per stone if you already own the lace. The most unexpected method on this list. Method 8, the mixed media stone. Method number 8, the final method, and the one that takes everything this list has taught you and uses it all at once. The mixed media stepping stone combines 2 or more techniques from the previous 7 methods into a single stone that is deliberately layered, deliberately complex, and deliberately unlike any other stone in the path. The most striking combination: a large leaf impression as the dominant central element, surrounded by a border of closely packed small pebbles or aggregate pressed flush to the stone edge. The leaf owns the center. The pebble border frames it. The contrast between the botanical detail of the impression and the earthy texture of the surrounding aggregate creates a visual richness that neither element achieves alone. A second combination that works beautifully: a mosaic tile motif at the center of the stone face, with exposed aggregate filling the surrounding area. The color of the tiles pops against the textured concrete background in a way it never does against a smooth gray surface. A third option: lace texture applied across the entire face of the stone, with a single line of contrasting pebbles or tile pieces pressed along the center as a spine. The lace becomes the background. The pebble line becomes the focal point. The finished stone reads as a piece of textile art permanently cast in concrete. The rule for mixed media stones: choose one dominant element and one supporting element. Do not try to use 3 techniques equally. One leads, one supports. The result is always more resolved and more beautiful than a stone that tries to do everything at the same level of visual weight. Place mixed media stones at the beginning and end of your path, or at its center point, the positions where the eye naturally rests. Let the simpler methods fill in between. The path reads as a collection with a considered hierarchy rather than a random selection. Budget: $2 to $5 per stone. The method that brings the whole path together. 3 bonus tips that make every method on this list work harder and last longer. Bonus tip 1. Make your molds interesting. The circular plant saucer is the default, but it is not the only option. Rectangular storage lids produce clean square stones that lay beautifully in a formal grid path. Oval serving trays produce elongated stones that suit a narrow pathway between planted borders. An old cake tin with a loose base produces a stone with perfectly straight sides and sharp corners. The shape of the mold is the first design decision, and an interesting shape makes even the simplest pour look considered. Bonus tip 2. Add fiber reinforcement to the mix. A small handful of polypropylene fiber reinforcement, available in hardware stores for a few dollars and sufficient for dozens of batches. Mix into your concrete before adding water creates a web of microfibers throughout the stone that dramatically reduces cracking, especially in freeze-thaw climates. Drop it in dry with the concrete powder. Mix thoroughly, then add water as normal. The fibers are invisible in the finished stone. The crack resistance is not. Bonus tip 3. Number your stones on the base before they cure. Use a nail or a chopstick to scratch a number into the base of each stone while the concrete is still workable. When you come to lay the path, you know exactly which stone was made first, which technique it uses, and if you mixed pigments, which batch it came from. A simple habit that makes path planning and future repairs straightforward. 8 simple ways to make concrete stepping stones. The clean classic with its chamfered edge and smooth face. The pressed leaf impression that turns a hosta or a fern into a permanent garden record. The mosaic tile inlay that makes a path from the tiles everyone else throws away. The exposed aggregate finish that looks like it came from a professional landscaping yard. The stamp pattern that borrows its texture from a rubber mat, a sponge, or a crumpled sheet of foil. The Pebble river stone face that brings Japanese garden design principles to a backyard path for $5. The lace and fabric texture transfer that uses a curtain offcut to produce something genuinely delicate and beautiful in concrete. And the mixed media stone that combines everything into the focal points the path needs to feel complete. 1 bag of mix. 8 completely different results. A path that runs through your garden with the quiet confidence of something permanent. Something you poured, pressed, textured, and placed yourself one stone at a time. Drop a comment right now. Tell me which method you're trying first. Or send me a photo if you have already made stepping stones. I feature viewer gardens in my community posts, and I would love to see what you have built. If you're new to Daily Garden Fix, welcome. Subscribe and turn on the bell because new builds and new ideas come out every single week. This channel exists for the person who wants a beautiful outdoor space and is willing to spend a Saturday making it happen rather than a fortune buying it ready-made. Share this video with one person whose garden path is long overdue. It might be the Saturday morning they finally stop walking across the mud. I will see you in the next one. Mix something, press something into it, and let it set into something that lasts. Take care. Bye.